I will decompose fractions into sum of smaller unit fractions using tape diagrams. So we've been talking about decomposing fractions in the last 3 fractions, and we've also talked about making sums of the smaller unit fractions using tape diagrams. We're going to continue with that strategy in this lesson. I want you to go ahead and get out your problem set and write your name on it. Let's take a look at the directions. The total length of each tape diagram represents one whole. Decompose the shaded unit fractions as the sum of smaller unit fractions in at least 2 different ways. The first one has been done for you. I always appreciate it when they do one for us because it gives us an example of what's expected. So you can see they took a half and they decompose it into fourths. So we've got 1/2 is equal to 1/4 plus 1/4. Then they took 1/4 and decomposed it into eighths. So now we have 1/2 is equal to 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8. So this is what we're going to do on part B. Okay, so we have our thirds, and they have been decomposed into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts. So now we're going to take the parts that's shaded, and we're going to say, okay, this is 1/6 plus 1/6, and we're going to say that's equal to 1/3. 1/3 is equal to 1/6 plus 1/6. Now here, they've taken that third and they've broken it down into 4 parts. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 parts. So now each of these is equal to 1/12. So I'm going to say 1/12 plus 1/12 plus 1/12 plus 1/12. And all of that is still equal to 1/3. So 1/3 is equal to 1/6 plus 1/6. It's also equal to 1/12 plus 1/12 plus 1/12 plus 1/12. Now this time we have to decompose them ourselves. So first of all, let's take these. These are 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are 4. So at the top I'm going to write 1/4. And I'm going to decompose these one time. So I'm going to draw a dotted line down each of these fourths. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 eighths. So each of these is equal to 1/8. So I'm going to draw this little bracket. If you can't draw that bracket, it's okay if you just do like this and just draw a straight across. So this is 1/8 plus 1/8, and that is all equal to 1/4. So 1/4 is equal to 1/8 plus 1/8. Now over here I have to do it a different way. I can't divide it into half, each fourth into half, because that's what I did over here. So this time I'm going to divide each of these into 3 parts like this. I'm going to put 2 dash lines in each fourth. Okay, so this is still 1/4, but now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now I have 12ths. So I'm going to draw my little bracket. I'm just going to draw this because these are getting kind of small. And this just means that I'm looking at each part individually. So I have 1/4 is equal to 1/12 plus 1/12 plus 1/12. Okay, so let's scroll down. All right, so let's count and see how many pieces there are in each whole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 1/5, and over here it's exact same, so I have 1/5. So I have to decompose this 2 different ways. First, I'm going to divide it in half. So think to yourself, if I divide each of these in half, what do my shaded pieces represent now? Instead of fifths, these are now what? These are now tenths, because when I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, there are 10 of them. So I have 1/5 is equal to 1/10 plus 1/10. Now over here I have to do it something different. So what do you think I should do? I could try to draw these into a bunch of different parts, but that would just be too much small lines. I think I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did above, and I'm just going to divide each of these fifths into 2 parts. So I'm going to come through here with my dotted line. I'm going to divide these into 2 parts. So what would each of these shaded parts represent now? Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I have 15. So these represent 1/15 plus 1/15 plus 1/15. So 1/5 is equal to 1/15 plus 1/15 plus 1/15. Oops, I forgot a 1 right here, didn't I? Okay. All right, so let's look at number 2. The total length of each tape diagram represents one whole. Decompose the shaded fractions as the sum of smaller unit fractions in at least 2 different ways. Sounds a lot like what we just did on the other ones, doesn't it? Okay, so everything's the same in number 2, except instead of having 1, I have 2 here. So you can see that these are thirds. There's 1, 2, 3 of them, but 2 of them are shaded, so my fraction is going to be 2/3. So this is 2/3, and this is 2/3. So now I have to decompose these. So I'm going to divide each of these into 2 parts. So now, instead of thirds, what do you think these fractions will be now? These are now 6s because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 2/3 equals 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6. You're going to have to be careful right here to leave some room because we're going to have to write for part B right here. Okay, so now I've already divided them into one part, so this time I'm going to divide them into 2 parts. So let's come through and do 2 dotted lines like this. So what fractions do you think that we've created now? These were thirds because we had 3 parts. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So these are ninths. So I have 2/3 is equal to 1/9 plus 1/9 plus 1/9 plus 1/9 plus 1/9 plus 1/9. So this is a sum of unit fractions. All right, so now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got 3 out of 5 or 3/5. And over here I have the exact same thing. So I have 3 out of 5 or 3/5. So let's decompose these. So let's decompose this by dividing them into 2 parts. So now instead of fifths, what do I have? I have tenths, because if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you'll see there are 10 of them. So I've got 3/5 is equal to 1/10 plus 1/10 plus 1/10 plus 1/10 plus 1/10 plus 1/10. Okay? Why don't you try to do this one on your own? Press pause and then come back. It's okay if you decompose yours differently than me, as long as your answer, you should be able to tell if it's correct. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and decompose this into 3 parts. I could divide it into 4 parts, but that would just mean more lines for me to draw, and it's kind of hard for me to draw nice and neatly with this marker. So we're just going to divide these into 3 parts. If you divided yours into more, that's okay. The only thing you could not do is divide it in half because we already did that. All right, so I've got 3/5. Now, because I divided each of these into 3 parts, I've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So these will be 15ths. So I have 1/15 plus 1/15 plus 1/15 plus 1/15 plus 1/15 plus 1/15 plus 1/15. I know this is getting out. I just can't make them any smaller. Plus 1/15 plus 1/15. This would be a good time to use multiplication, wouldn't it? It would be so much easier to just say 3/5 is equal to 9 times 1/15. Would save me some writing. But it does say as a sum of smaller unit fractions, so that means we're using addition. Okay, so now let's take a look at number 3. Draw and label tape diagrams to prove the following statements. The first one has been done for you. So if you look, the statement is 2/5 is equal to 4/10. And we can see that originally this was divided into 5 parts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they divided each in half to make them tenths. So this proves that 2/5 is the same as 4/10. So now we have to prove 2 6s is equal to 4/12. So we're going to go ahead and start by drawing our tape diagram and make it big enough so that you can divide it and be able to tell what you're doing. Don't make it so tiny that you can't count your boxes. So the first thing I have to do is, because this says 2 out of 6, I have to divide this into 6s. So first I'm going to divide it in half, and then I'm going to divide each half into 3 parts by drawing 2 lines. So now there's 3 parts on this side, and 3 parts on this side. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to shade 2 out of 6 like this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and up here and I'm going to label this 2 6s. Now I have to prove that this is the same as 4 12s. So if I divide each of these in half like this, instead of having 6 parts, I will now have 12 parts. So you can see right here that this is 4, and you can kind of see it's kind of hard to see. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in, instead of shading that with black, see what happens when you do it really dark? I'm going to come back and shade this with a highlighter so that you can see that there are 4 parts there. So let's come back with yellow. Okay. All right, so I've got 4 out of 12. All right, so let's go to the next one. So again, we're going to draw a tape diagram. I'm going to move it over here so that as I'm writing, I'm not going to get caught up in the one above. Okay, so I'm going to move mine down here. And first of all, it says 3 out of 4. So that means that I have to divide my tape diagram into 4 parts. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to divide it in half. And then I'm going to divide each half in half. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4. And I have to shade 3 out of 4. So I've got 1, 2, 3. So that's 3/4. So let's come up here and let's label 3/4. And it says I'm trying to prove that these are eighths. Well, if I divide each of these in half, instead of having 4 parts, I will have 8 parts. So let's divide these in half and then count to see if we have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 eighths in the same place that we originally had 3/4. So 3/4 is equal to 6 eighths. Okay? All right, so we've got one more. We have to do 3/4 is equal to 9/12. So I'm going to make my tape diagram. And because my original fraction says 3 out of 4, I'm going to begin by dividing this into 4 parts, just like I did the last one. So here is 4 parts, and I have to shade 3 of them to make it say 3/4. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's come back and label this 3/4. Do you think that you could decompose these fourths into 12ths by yourself? If you think you know what to do, go ahead and pause the video and then come back. All right, so if there's 4 and I want to make 12, that means I have to take each of these and divide them into 3 parts, because this would be 3, 6, 9, and then 12. And then all I have to do is label this. And where there were 3 out of 4, now I have 9 out of 12. So now I have to show that 1/2 is equivalent to 4/8 using a tape diagram and a number sentence. Okay, so this time we're going to do it just a little bit differently, so it's not exactly like what we just did. Let's start with our tape diagram right here. And we are going to go ahead and we are going to show that 1/2 is equal to 4/8. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to divide it in half, and we're going to shade 1 out of 2. So that is 1/2. Right now, I'm going to make this half into eighths. So if I divide this once, now I have 1, 2, 3 fourths, but I want eighths. So I'm going to have to divide each of these fourths into half. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 1/2 and I have 4/8 is the same. It says use a number sentence. It does not say use a sum of unit fractions, thank goodness, because that gets a little bit tiring. So I'm going to say 1/2 is equal to, I could say 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8, but instead of saying that, I'm going to say 4 times 1/8, which is equal to 4/8. Okay? All right, so let's try doing another one. If you feel like you can do this one all by yourself, try it. The worst thing that happens is you get it wrong and you have to erase and fix it. But that's how you learn, by making your mistakes. So don't feel bad if you don't get it right the first time. At least you tried to do it by yourself. Okay, so hopefully you attempted to do this by yourself, and if you got stuck and you had to come back and work with me, that's okay. Just try again next time. All right, so it says show that 2/3 is equivalent. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to divide this into thirds like this. So now I've got 1, 2, 3. It says 2/3. So I'm going to shade 2 out of 3. And I'm trying to prove that this is equal to 6/9. So I've got to divide this into 9 parts. Now if I just divided each of these in half, that would only give me 6s. And I have to have 9. So that means that I have to divide each of these thirds into 3 parts. These were supposed to be solid lines, weren't they? Now let's see if we have 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I did have 2 out of 3, and now I have 6 out of 9. So I've got 2/3 is equal to, and I could say 1/9, 1/9, 1/9, 1/9, 1/9, 1/9, 6 times. But instead I'm going to say 6 times 1/9, which is equal to 6/9, just like that. Okay? All right, we've got one more. All right, so show that 4/6 is equivalent to 8/12. Again, I want you to try to do this one again by yourself. The worst thing that happens is you get stuck and you have to do it along with me, or you don't do it right and you have to erase. That's okay. That's how you learn. All right, so hopefully you pause the video and you at least try to do some of this by yourself. The first fraction tells me how many parts I have to divide it into. So because these are 6s, I'm going to go ahead and divide this into 3 parts like this. And then I'm going to divide each third in half like this, because this is going to give me a total of 6 parts. And I'm going to go back and count just to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I do have 6 parts, and it tells me 4 6s. So that's the same thing as 4 out of 6. I'm going to go ahead and shade 4 out of 6 just like this. All right. Now it says I'm trying to prove that this is equal to 8/12. Well, if I already have 6 parts, if I divide each of these in half like this, now instead of having 6 parts, I'll have 12. So let's go back and count and see if we do indeed have 12 parts now. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I have 8 out of 12. So try to write your number sentence if you haven't already. Go ahead and press pause and see if you can do it all by yourself. All right, so 4 6s is equal to, I could say 1/8, 1/8, no, excuse me, I could say 1/12, 1/12, 1/12, 1/12, 8 times, but that gets a little bit tiring. I'm going to say 8 times 1/12, which equals 8/12. So 4 6s is equal to 8/12. Okay, so we did a lot of work today with decomposing fractions into parts that were equal to one another. If you get stuck today, make sure that you come back to your tape diagram and look at your problem set and all these tape diagrams that you drew to help you.